Jackson sat alone in the dim, silent corners of his office, the taste of stale coffee clinging to his tongue like regret. His eyes locked onto the paused frame of the security footage, a grainy snapshot from earlier that morning. A boy, thin, cautious, face half buried under the shadow of a hood, stood by the pastry shelf, nervous glances, a fleeting hesitation. Then, with a swift movement, he slipped a sandwich into his coat pocket. Just behind him, Mira was restocking cups. She looked up, caught it, paused, and turned away. Jackson froze the image. His jaw tightened. With a breath that trembled beneath the surface, he rewound the footage, playing it again in slow motion, as if that would change something. Same move, same silence, same evasion. Leaning back, he whispered under his breath, more to himself than the empty room, "I thought he was just another thief." But the boy had said something that lingered in his mind, a sentence that wouldn't let go. He paused again, staring at the boy's face, tired eyes that had seen too much, lips pressed in hunger, a quiet desperation that lived in shadows. What Jackson didn't realize, not yet, was that this moment would come to challenge everything he believed about fairness, pride, and the invisible cost of survival. This wasn't just about a sandwich. This was about the structure of his world and the cracks that were beginning to show. Jackson Rivers had carved his cafe empire with blood and sleepless nights. No seed money, no safety net, just grit, cheap rent, and an unshakable refusal to be anything but self-made. At 23, he pushed a cart near the train station. By 43, he owned 7 bustling locations. Success hardened him. Rules replaced grace. Systems overtook sentiment. He preached discipline like scripture. Second chances? Only if they were earned. And yet, slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began building walls. The more he gave, the more people took. Gratitude turned transactional. So he stopped giving. Loyalty was calculated, measured in shifts, not stories. People were numbers on a schedule, faces blurred into efficiency. He wasn't cruel, not by intention. He was pragmatic. "I don't run a church, I run a business," he'd say. Staff respected him. Some feared him. But no one truly knew him. And maybe, deep down, that's exactly how he preferred it. Until that morning, when a kid in a hoodie and a stolen sandwich cracked something buried under years of resolve. He hadn't always been like this. Years ago, he once helped a young barista, a paycheck advance to cover rent. The next day, the guy vanished, took the register key with him. Trust died that day, replaced by protocols. Cameras went up in every corner, not for protection but control. Jackson didn't just review them, he studied them. Quietly, religiously. Not to catch criminals, but to catch softness, weakness. A free cookie here, an extra drink there. Little things, but to Jackson, little things were leaks, cracks in the dam, and cracks always widened. His philosophy was simple, mathematical. You earn what you get or you get out. That's why when he saw Mira look away, something twisted inside. Mira had worked there for nearly 4 years. She wasn't the fastest or the most perfect, but customers remembered her, her gentle voice, her eyes that listened when they asked, "How's your day?" And she'd ask back, "How's it really going?" She had a way of making people feel like they mattered, even when they didn't know they needed it. Jackson noticed the subtle shift before the cameras confirmed it. Inventory inconsistencies, 1 or 2 sandwiches missing each week. No receipts, no records, but patterns. Mira, always alone during closing, wrapping a sandwich, slipping it into a plain paper bag. No bite, no coworker in sight, and always left at the back, near the sink, same time, same day. Then, minutes later, gone. He didn't know who she left them for, but a theory was beginning to form, a theory with edges sharper than he wanted to admit. Jackson didn't confront her. Not yet. He believed in pressure, in patience, Let the truth rise on its own. But the way she moved was too deliberate, too practiced. This wasn't negligence. It was compassion disguised as routine. He watched another clip. Mira placed the sandwich near the sink. 10 minutes later, it vanished. No customer, no charge. Jackson rewound. There, a shadow in the hall. A young man in a hoodie. Same as before, same quiet theft. But this time, Mira looked right at him and turned away again. Jackson sat back, exhaled. So she knows, he murmured. He didn't know who the boy was, didn't know why Mira would protect him. But he had a plan now. He'd let them run their game, then decide. That afternoon, the bell above the door chimed, soft and worn like memory. Eli stepped in, shoulders drawn inward, hoodie frayed, shoes bent thin from use. One sole flapped with each quiet step. He moved like someone apologizing for existing. At the counter, he pulled out a handful of crumpled bills and coins, counting twice, hands trembling. "Small black coffee, please," he said. Mira didn't blink, didn't judge. As the espresso hissed, she reached into the case, pulled a cheese sandwich, wrapped it, and placed it beside the cup. Eli froze. I didn't." "It's fine," she said softly, with a smile that asked nothing. Jackson watched it all from the office window. In that moment, something in him wavered. He wasn't sure what he was watching anymore, a betrayal or an act of quiet defiance, maybe even redemption. And for the first time in a long while, he didn't know what to do next. It was extra. Eli's voice was tight, almost embarrassed. He paused, then nodded once, as if gratitude cost him something. "Thank you." From a darkened corner of the cafe, Jackson watched, silent and still. He had found the boy, the one from the security footage. Now, he just needed to understand the why. Why Mira kept feeding him. Why this boy kept coming back. And what, exactly, he was running from. Later that day, Jackson moved through his cafe like a shadow, cleaning countertops beside Mira, keeping his tone casual. "Hey, that kid who comes in sometimes, the one in the hoodie. You know him?" One barista shrugged. "Shows up now and then, always polite, doesn't say much." Another added, "Never causes any trouble. Think he works around here?" They exchanged glances. No one was sure. Jackson tilted his head. "No name." Mira spoke softly, almost like she didn't want to give it away. "I think he told me once. Eli." Jackson nodded, feigning indifference. But it unsettled him. In a place where regulars shared weekend plans and inside jokes over oat milk lattes, this boy had become a phantom, slipping in, slipping out, leaving behind nothing but the scent of warmed bread and unanswered questions. That night, Jackson returned to his office. Lights off, laptop aglow. He sifted through 2 weeks of footage, frame by frame, chasing a ghost in a hoodie. Same day, same time, same moves. Eli appeared quietly, lingered near the corner, waited. Mira stepped into the back. Eli leaned over the counter, grabbed a sandwich, tucked it away, and disappeared. Seconds later, Mira returned. She paused, stared at the now empty tray. No word, no reaction, just a quiet sigh before she resumed her tasks. Jackson played the clip again and again. Her stillness wasn't confusion, it was choice. To him, silence wasn't neutrality, it was participation. Closing his laptop, Jackson's jaw tightened. This wasn't compassion, it was a violation of the system he built brick by brick. Every dollar mattered. Every rule existed for a reason, and Mira, someone he trusted, had chosen to break that quietly. He didn't want excuses, he didn't want apologies. He wanted clarity, real face-to-face truth, not filtered through security footage. He needed to see the boy, understand his rhythm, hear the words he used when he didn't think someone was listening. So Jackson made a plan. No jacket, no tie, just a hoodie and a cap pulled low. He'd blend in, watch, listen, and maybe, just maybe, understand. The next morning, Jackson walked into his own cafe as a stranger. Old jeans, weathered coat, ball cap shading his face. No one batted an eye. He settled into a corner seat, just a few tables from Eli. The boy sat quietly, hands wrapped around a battered paper cup as if the warmth anchored him to this world. Jackson noted the shoes held together with duct tape, the way Eli sat still. No phone, no tapping, no distractions. Just quiet. Stillness. A kind of calm forged by exhaustion, not peace. When Mira brought over a small pastry and set it beside him, Eli flinched like someone waiting to be scolded. Instead, she smiled, nodded, and walked away. Jackson sipped his coffee. Somehow, none of this felt like theft. It felt human, but he still couldn't name the feeling stirring in his chest. He leaned slightly toward the boy, keeping his tone easy. Busy day ahead? Eli glanced sideways, tense, then softened. Just the usual, he said quietly. Polite. Guarded. Jackson nodded. This place has good coffee. A hint of a smile from Eli. Yeah, and it's quiet. They sat in that silence, thick but not uncomfortable. Jackson studied the way Eli carried himself, like someone who had learned to expect very little and ask for even less. You come here often. Couple times a week, better than sitting in a parking lot. That hit Jackson harder than he expected. He didn't respond, just watched. Eli wasn't rude, he was careful. There was something honest in his quiet, a stillness without fear, just distance. Jackson stirred his drink. You work around here? Eli hesitated. His fingers curled tighter around the cup. Not really, just some stuff here and there. Jackson let the silence grow, then gently asked, You got a place? Eli's jaw moved, but no sound came at first. Then, I live in my car, since last fall. Jackson blinked, but didn't speak. Eli looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time. My mom passed a few months ago. It wasn't said for sympathy. It was just a fact, a truth laid bare. In those eyes, Jackson saw the weight of survival. Not just grief, but pride. The kind that holds you upright when the world keeps kicking you down. He felt something tighten in his chest. Can I ask something? Jackson said. Eli shrugged. Sure. Why this place? Of all the spots in the city? Eli looked down, then out the window. I don't know, he said softly. It's warm, quiet. Nobody stares. A pause. It feels safe. That word lingered. Safe, not cozy, not friendly, safe, like that mattered more than anything else. Jackson had built his cafes on rules, not refuge. But here was a boy finding shelter in what was never meant to be a sanctuary. Eli traced his thumb along the edge of his cup. His voice was barely above a whisper. There was a day, a while ago. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. Came in, waited till no one was looking, grabbed a sandwich. Thought I'd get caught. Thought someone would yell, "Throw me out." He paused, then smiled faintly. Not out of humor, but disbelief. But she saw me. Mira. She looked right at me, didn't say a thing, just walked behind the counter, came back with a drink and another sandwich. He let out a soft, dry breath. Not quite a laugh. More like release. No lecture, no guilt trip, just kindness. Jackson sat still. The boy's voice had no drama, no demand for pity, just truth. Honest, simple, powerful, and in that moment, something shifted inside him. A quiet recognition that maybe compassion wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the strongest thing of all. It was extra. Eli's voice was tight, almost embarrassed. He paused, then nodded once, as if gratitude cost him something. Thank you. From a darkened corner of the cafe, Jackson watched, silent and still. He had found the boy, the one from the security footage. Now, he just needed to understand the why. Why Mira kept feeding him. Why this boy kept coming back. And what, exactly, he was running from. Most people, Eli said softly. They look at you and decide everything in a second. He tapped the table once, a quiet punctuation. I've been followed in stores, told to leave restaurants, had doors shut in my face before I even touched the handle. Jackson didn't interrupt. He just listened. But Mira... Eli paused, his voice softening. She saw me do something wrong and didn't treat me like I was wrong. He looked up, not for long, but long enough. I've never been trusted like that before. The sentence hung in the air, not theatrical, just honest. Jackson felt its weight. Trust given without preconditions. No speech, no warning, no paperwork. Just given. He suddenly wondered if he'd ever done the same for anyone. And for the first time in years, Jackson felt something foreign and disarming. Uncertainty. He didn't speak, just stared into his cup, his fingers still. Inside, thoughts churned like a tide. All the rules he held sacred, structure, respect, order, felt thin. Not wrong, but incomplete. Jackson had always believed kindness must be earned. That generosity was a reward, not a reflex. But Eli had done nothing to earn it. He had simply been hungry. And Mira had answered with quiet, unwavering humanity. No questions, no conditions, no applause. Just a sandwich. Jackson shifted in his seat. He had come here to catch a thief. But across from him sat a boy with tired eyes and hands that didn't shake when they told the truth. And now, everything Jackson thought he knew was unraveling. Eli exhaled, slow. Then, without prompting, he said, I was arrested once. Jackson looked up. Still, he said nothing. 15 years old, corner store, took a bag of chips and a bottle of water. I didn't run, just stood there. His voice wasn't bitter, just distant. A memory polished smooth by time. They asked me why. I said I was hungry. He looked at his hands, eyes on scars only he could see. I didn't want to steal, I just wanted to eat. Jackson stayed quiet, listening. They called it petty theft, put it on my record, but no one asked if I had food at home. That sentence stung in a way Jackson couldn't explain. Because in all his years of building and managing, of tracking inventory and enforcing rules, he had never asked that either. Eli blinked hard. That day Mira gave me the sandwich, I was going to give up. Jackson didn't move. I hadn't eaten in over 30 hours, lost the last job I had, sleeping in the back seat with a broken window. His hands trembled slightly, holding the cup like it was the last warm thing he had. I came here thinking maybe I'd grab something and leave. No plan after that. A tear slipped down. Eli wiped it away quickly. But she saw me, and she didn't call me out. She didn't look disappointed. He drew a breath, sharp and fragile. She handed me that sandwich like I was still a person. The silence between them deepened. Jackson sat very still, as though any movement might break something sacred. He felt a shift inside himself, subtle but irreversible. Then Mira approached, 2 cups in hand. She didn't look at Jackson, just another man in a worn cap. Refill? She asked. Eli nodded, already setting his cup down. His eyes were red, but steadier. Thank you. Mira gave a small smile, the kind that didn't ask questions or expect anything in return. She placed the second cup near Jackson, gave a polite nod, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and walked back to the counter. No tension, no rush, just quiet grace. The air in the cafe lightened, like a storm had passed unnoticed. Jackson sat back, eyes following her. She still didn't know who he was, but he now knew exactly who she was. He turned to Eli, studied him fully now. Then slowly, Jackson stood. He reached up, pulled off his cap, and set it on the table. I'm Jackson Rivers, he said, his voice even, low. I own this place. Mira froze mid-step, a cloth in hand. The barista near the register stopped mid-motion. Across the cafe, a couple paused mid-sip. Eli blinked up at him, stunned, color draining from his face. No one moved, no one dared. The espresso machine hissed softly in the background. Jackson didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I've been listening," he said. Eli's hands tightened around his cup. His breath caught. Mira looked stunned, not fearful, not defiant, just caught in something too big for her to hide. Jackson stayed still. He hadn't planned what came next, because now nothing fit into the script he had prepared. Mira's eyes met his, then dropped. She didn't speak. Eli stood halfway, stammering. I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" Jackson lifted a hand gently. "Sit." It wasn't a demand, but it held weight. Eli sat, eyes lowered. Jackson turned to the counter. "Staff meeting now." The team exchanged glances, confused, nervous. They gathered near the back, behind the espresso machine. Mira joined last, still silent. Jackson looked around. He didn't know what to say, but he knew one thing. This wasn't about a sandwich anymore. It was about what this place stood for, and who he was becoming. He looked at Mira. "You saw him take food. Why didn't you report it?" Mira didn't flinch. Her voice was quiet but unwavering. "Because he didn't steal it." Jackson's tone sharpened. "He didn't pay." "No," she replied. "But he was starving." The room shifted. Muscles tensed. Jackson crossed his arms. "That's not how we run things here." Mira met his gaze. "Then maybe we need to ask why." Jackson blinked. "I didn't ignore it," she said. "I made a choice, because he needed help, not punishment." Her words hung in the air. No one interrupted. No one objected. From the side, Nana, the youngest barista, finally spoke. "I get compassion," she said. "But doesn't this enable theft?" Mira turned to her. It wasn't about the food. Nana shook her head. "Still, if someone else saw it, what would they think? That it's okay to just take what you want?" Silence. Even Jackson stayed quiet. Nana's voice dropped. "We all work hard. We follow rules. If that doesn't matter anymore, then what are we doing?" Mira looked down at her hands, folded in front of her apron. "I hear you." Jackson stood at the crossroads. Order or mercy, policy or people. Mira stepped forward slightly. "If helping someone at their lowest means I broke a rule," she said, "then I accept whatever comes." She wasn't dramatic, just steady. "I didn't do it to feel good or be a hero." Her eyes gleamed, not with pride, but clarity. "I did it because I've been that hungry, not for food, but for someone to see me, to care, even for a moment." The room stilled. Mira didn't defend the act, but she stood by the reason. Jackson's arms stayed crossed, jaw clenched. Inside, her words echoed. Across from him, Eli sat, silent, small, still waiting to be punished. This was his cafe, his rules, his team, and yet he didn't know what justice meant anymore. Minutes passed like thunder rolling slowly across the floor. Then, without a word, Jackson turned and walked toward the kitchen door. "Meeting's over," he said flatly. No punishment, no apology, just silence. The staff drifted back to work. Some exchanged glances. Most said nothing. Mira remained still. Eli stayed seated. And for the first time, Jackson felt like he was truly seeing the cafe he had built, and what it could become. And Jackson, he kept walking, past the espresso machine, beyond the prep counters, deeper into the back, as though somewhere behind the storage shelves and stacked paper cups there might be an answer he'd missed. That night, long after the cafe's lights dimmed and the last customer had gone, Jackson remained. The quiet was near complete, broken only by the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the slow, rhythmic ticking of the wall clock, like a heartbeat for a building at rest. He wandered through the empty space until he stopped beside the old suggestion box, wooden, worn, nearly forgotten. covered in a film of dust. It hadn't been touched in years. He opened it, fingers brushing over napkin notes, faded receipts, comment cards scribbled in haste or gratitude. Near the bottom, his hand found a folded envelope. No name, no stamp, just handwriting, shaky and uncertain. He opened it. To whoever was working that rainy afternoon, you gave me a sandwich. No questions, no judgment. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. I was thinking of ending it that night. But you looked me in the eye like I still mattered. Thank you. I'm still here. Jackson sat down, the letter trembling, in his hands. He didn't know who had written it. He didn't know which barista had given the sandwich. But suddenly, Mira's choice didn't feel like defiance. It felt like mercy, like a thread that kept someone from falling too far. That letter didn't leave his pocket. He walked that night, the streets unfamiliar in their silence. Not toward home, but into memory, block by block. Fragments returned. The alley behind the pharmacy where he'd once curled up with a borrowed blanket. The bench on 3rd and Main where he'd sat for hours pretending someone was coming for him. The flickering neon of a corner store where a tired clerk once slid him bread without saying a word. He remembered how cold pavement felt, how shame became a second skin. He had forgotten the way it hollowed you out, not just your stomach, but your sense of worth. He stood at the corner of a deli, the windows fogged now, older, but the memory was vivid. 17, shivering, alone. He had placed a roll on the counter, short 37 cents. The clerk reached to take it back, but a hand had landed beside his. A man, older, wearing a worn coat. He dropped the coins and simply said, "Keep the bread, kid." No sermon, no expectation, just kindness. Jackson had eaten that roll sitting on the curb, the warmth in his chest not from the bread, but the gesture. And now, so many years later, he saw it clearly. He had been Eli, and someone had once chosen grace for him too. The question hit him harder than the cold wind on his face. How had he forgotten? Not the struggle, but the hand that helped. He had built a life so strong, so self-sufficient, he forgot what it meant to be saved. The next morning, Jackson arrived before dawn. No suit, no clipboard, just a folded note in his hand and something different in his eyes. By 9 a.m., the staff gathered, curious and unsure. Jackson stood by the counter, cleared his throat, and spoke softly. "Starting today," he said, "there will be a shelf by the front door." He held up the letter, his voice steady. "We'll call it the community shelf. If someone needs food, they take it. No questions, no shame." The room went still. He looked around. "We'll call it what it is, grace, and we'll treat it with the same care we treat our best drinks." A long pause, then, "Whoever can give, gives. Whoever needs, takes, and no one asks why." There was no corporate policy, no profit plan, just a promise. Some staff shifted uncomfortably. "What if people take advantage?" someone asked. "What if it gets out of control?" "We're not a shelter," another muttered. "We're a business." Jackson nodded. "You're right. It's risky. It's not perfect. But ask yourself, what are we really afraid of? A few sandwiches or giving up control?" He let the question breathe. You can run a clean ledger, or you can run a place with heart, but not both, not always. The silence that followed wasn't resistance. It was reflection. Mira stood still, eyes shining. A tear slid down her cheek, not from sadness, but something deeper. Jackson met her gaze, said nothing, just nodded. One by one, a few employees stepped forward. "I'm in," one said. "We'll figure it out," said another. But not everyone stayed. 2 baristas quietly packed their things. No anger, no words, just exits. Jackson didn't stop them. Every team chooses its heart. As the door shut behind them, Mira whispered, "Thank you." Jackson looked around. The team was smaller now, but stronger. And for the first time, it felt like they were building something that could outlast anything. Later that day, Jackson found Eli at his usual table near the window. Same hoodie, same quiet posture. He sat across without a word. Eli looked up, unsure. Jackson spoke first. "I'm not here to apologize. I still don't agree with how everything happened." Eli nodded slowly, preparing for rejection. "But," Jackson continued, "I owe you something. A chance." Eli blinked. "What do you mean?" "A job, a few shifts. Learn the ropes. See if this place can be more than just a stop between hard days." Eli hesitated. "Why me?" Jackson didn't flinch. "Because you matter, and because sometimes grace is earned later." Eli looked down, then back up. "I can't," he said. "I stole from you. I don't deserve to wear your uniform." Jackson leaned forward. "You're wrong. You were hungry, desperate. You made a choice." Eli stayed quiet. "We've all made mistakes," Jackson said. "Some got caught, some didn't, but we've all been there, even me." Eli's voice was barely audible. "I don't want charity." "This isn't charity, it's trust. The door's open. What you do with it, that's up to you." Eli didn't answer, but something in him shifted. The next morning, Eli showed up early. Nervous hands, clean shirt, same shoes. He nodded at Mira. She smiled. No words. Jackson handed him an apron. "Let's start simple." By noon, Eli had wiped tables, refilled creamers, restocked napkins. Quiet, but not invisible. Customers noticed. No one asked where he came from, and maybe that was the best part. A new sign hung by the door. Bold letters. "Here, you don't just buy coffee. You find your way back to people." Some read it. Some smiled. One woman wiped her eyes. Eli stood straighter. A week passed. He fumbled lattes, spilled milk, apologized too often, but never gave up. A customer left a napkin note. "The new guy's got heart. Keep him." Another mom waved on her way out. "Tell him the hot chocolate was perfect," she said. It wasn't. But Eli smiled anyway. Mira showed him the steam wand trick. The pitcher angle. The way to listen for the perfect pitch. He tried, and tried again. Not because he had to, but because he believed he could get it right. One afternoon, Mira called him to the grinder. "This one's tricky," she said. "Too fine, it clogs. Too coarse, it's weak." She showed him, then stepped back. "Your turn." Eli mimicked her, adjusted, listened. "Better," she said. "That's how I learned too." Eli looked at her. "Someone taught you?" "Yeah, someone kind. Long time ago. Guess it's my turn now." Eli smiled. After his shift, Eli walked to the new community shelf. He placed 2 sandwiches, paid for with his tips, and taped a note above it. "If you need one, take it. If you have enough, leave one." No name, just a gesture. A boy came in later. Young, hoodie too big, shoes too thin. He read the note. Reached slowly, took 1 sandwich. Eli watched, said nothing, just nodded. The boy smiled, barely, then left. No words were needed. Eli turned back to work, and for the first time, he wasn't just receiving kindness. He was passing it on. Jackson stood by the window, watching his cafe hum with quiet purpose. He saw Eli nod to a stranger. He saw Mira hand off a drink. And he smiled. "I used to think I was here to lead, to teach," he said, half to himself. "But Mira and Eli, they taught me how to be human again. Sometimes the biggest shift isn't policy, it's perspective. Thanks for walking this road with me. Sometimes all it takes is one moment to remember who we really are."